Well, welcome again to our Wonderful Day in the Lord broadcast. We're looking at the book of Job together, and I want to start today at chapter 40 and verses 7 and 8 as God continues, as we're going to see here the rest of the week. The Lord is showing Job the magnificence of himself and what Job has missed. And what Job has missed is causing all the internal conflict and angst in his life. But we'll go to verses 7 and 8. First of all, chapter 40, he says, "Now gird up your loins like a man, and I will ask you, and you instruct me. Will you really annul my judgment? Will you condemn me that you may be justified?" So the Lord is saying, you don't know what you're talking about. We saw that yesterday. Are you really going to challenge my judgment, he says? Will you condemn me? Can you imagine condemning God? But we do so, or Job is doing so that he could justify himself. So when we put God on the hot seat, and we in essence say you're wrong, we're doing so because we want to justify something about ourselves. And so God is calling Job out on that. So what is it that Job does not know? Well, God gives us a wonderful overview of the creative and powerful and sovereign control that he has over his universe. And so he backs up, and often, like we do a lot of the book of Job, we just kind of read through this kind of quickly, and we're not taking the time to digest the wonderful material given here. So we're going to go a little bit slower than that in our time together. Let's take a look at what God is saying about his magnificence, his sovereignty, and so forth. Go to chapter 38, look at verse 8. "Or who enclosed the sea with doors? When bursting forth, it went out from the womb." Verse 10, "And I placed boundaries on it and set bolt and doors. And I said, thus far you shall come, but no further, and here shall your proud waves stop." So the Lord is now going to just kind of catalog some of the magnificent acts that he performs. His creation, his control, his sovereignty, and he's going to bring all this to Job's attention. He wants him to see exactly the kind of God that he is. Now, again, Job seems to know this, just like you and I seem to know the magnificence of God. And yet, in the everyday push and shove of life, sometimes we just don't put it together. And sometimes we in practicality, we see God as far more anemic than he is. As a matter of fact, he's not anemic at all, as we will see in the passage. So the Lord is showing Job that he simply does not understand who he is dealing with. And I think it's good for us to see that as well. So he starts off with the sea, the oceans. And we see in this passage of Scripture here that the Lord has set boundaries for the sea. He controls it. When we think about the oceans, this huge body of water that covers so much of the earth that is so beyond our comprehension as to the magnificence of the ocean. We know it's there. People play on the beaches and go into the water and surf and fish and all these things. But the depths of the sea, the magnificence of the sea, the control of the sea is just beyond us. And so the Lord has set boundaries even for the oceans. The oceans is so far beyond our control. Even in our modern technological world, we don't control the oceans. The oceans can control us. And so Job needs to see just that alone. And then he moves on in verse 12, and he talks about the rising of the sun. He said, "Have you ever in your life commanded the morning and caused the dawn to know its place?" So we take for granted, all these things we're looking at together here, we take for granted. We take for granted that we say the sun comes up and the sun goes down every day. We know scientifically it's the other way around. The sun's not moving, we are. But we use those terms. And he's saying to Job, do you command that? Are you the one that causes morning to start? Are you the one that causes the day to end? What do you know about the rotation of the earth and the heavens? Are you in charge of those things? We take it for granted. We expect the sun to come up every day. We expect it to go down every night in our language. And yet, do you ever stop long enough to think about the the unbelievable mechanism that God had to put in place, the creation that he had to create and cause it to function and to sustain it day and night, to give us day and night. Job ever really thought about that? Maybe, but apparently not deep enough. So the Lord brings that to his attention. Let's pick up on some more of that tomorrow as we move into the verses after this.